It's 8:30 on the East Coast, and we want to get started on time. So everyone is now on mute. But if you have a question or comment, please press 1 on your keypad so we can unmute you. My name is Joyce Sanchez, and I'm the Citizen Engagement Coordinator here at American Promise. Welcome to another American Promise Citizen Uprising Core Team Conference Call, a call that happens on the second and fourth Thursday of each month. Thanks to all of you who have taken out the time of your busy schedule to join us this evening and are stepping up to save democracy. We are honored to have our good friend and wonderful coach, Sam Daly-Harris, back to follow up on our letter to the editor training and to introduce new skills around grassroots lobbying. I'll introduce him in a few moments, but we'll start with a quote and a few opening remarks. This quote is from the late Jim Grant, who headed UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund. Grant said, "Each of the great social achievements of recent decades has come about not because of government proclamations, but because people organized, made demands, and made it good politics for governments to respond. It is the political will of the people that makes and sustains the political will of governments." Let me repeat that. Grant said, "Each of the great social achievements of recent decades has come about not because of government proclamations, but because people organized, made demands, and made it good politics for governments to respond. It is the political will of the people that makes and sustains the political will of governments." That's the good news and the bad news. If the political will of the people is a bit asleep at the wheel, then the political will of the government will be asleep at the wheel. Our commitment at American Promise is to empower the core teams and the APAs to organize, make demands, and make it good politics for governments to respond to overturning Citizens United. And Sam's section will help us see ways to do that. Last week, we heard from Kellen Arno, founder of the Grandview Campaigns, who discussed the nuts and bolts of statewide ballot initiatives. While all of us on this call might not live in states that allow for the ballot initiative process, it was so great to hear how efforts like ballot initiative power the national movement regardless of where you live. Tonight we're going to talk about efforts to pass statewide legislative resolutions in support of a 20th Amendment. As we know, 18 states have already called for a 20th Amendment either through ballot initiative or legislative resolution. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? There are 18 more states that currently have resolutions filed and are making their way through state legislators as we speak, and potentially a few more to be filed. And that's amazing. So tonight, we're going to talk about the best ways to support these efforts that are currently underway by reaching out to our elected officials and asking them to support the resolution calling for a 20th Amendment to ensure that people, not money and not corporations, govern America. Folks, this is what it's all about. We have a tremendous amount of power to influence our elected officials, and these core team calls are designed to make us better advocates and better spokespersons for the 20th Amendment. The more we learn skills and exercise these muscles, the more impact we'll have. I'd now like to welcome our guest speaker, Sam Daly-Harris. For those of you that have not met Sam, he is the founder of the Center of Citizen Empowerment and Transformation. Sam also coached the Citizens Climate Lobby during its first 7 years. Their volunteers played a key role in creating a House Climate Solutions Caucus last year with 13 Republicans and 13 Democrats joining the caucus. Their volunteers had over 3,000 letters to the editor published in 2015 and nearly 1,300 meetings with Congress or their staff. That's the kind of empowerment we want to bring to core teams, to APAs, and to our issues. So Sam, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Hi, everyone. My section will have several components, and I hope to have you comment or ask questions throughout. In a moment, I'll ask about, I want to talk about what we're trying to accomplish with these core teams and core team conference calls. The first two were last month, and this is the third call so far. Then I'll touch on where you can find information on state and local level resolutions calling for overturning Citizens United. After that, I'm going to lead a section on the champion scale, how when my member of Congress says he or she supports overturning Citizens United, I'm not done. Or when my city council passes a resolution endorsing a 28th Amendment, we're not done. And how we don't just want them to be supporters, we want them to be advocates, to be leaders, and eventually to be champions for overturning Citizens United. And the last section will return to the letters to the editor training. If you're able to go online easily, please get yourself in a position to do so we can do some research for the letters to the editor section and a different section too. Also, if you've had a letter to the editor published since our last call, or you're struggling with some aspect of that, please be ready to tell us about it. Since our call 2 weeks ago, I know there have been letters published in the Boston Globe and one in the News Journal in Delaware. If Sharon or Deborah, who wrote those pieces, are on the call, or if anyone else is on the call who had a letter published in the last 2 weeks, I hope you'll be ready to speak up during that section later in the call. So let me start with this story. I've been coaching American Promise since August on bringing a deeper structure of support to people and groups around the country. Another of the groups I coach is the Quaker Lobby, Friends Committee on National Legislation. They have so much interest in starting chapters that they're sending me to 3 of the 18 cities that want to start groups right now. In the last few days, I've started FCNL groups in Richmond and Charlottesville, Virginia, and if there's not too much snow, I'll start another one tomorrow night in New Paltz, New York. I'm hearing so many people who are hungry to make a difference. I hear people say, before the election, I kind of trusted that other people were taking care of issues that mattered. But since the election, I've come to see that I can't just stay on the sidelines. I have to get out there. I need to have my voice heard and not just hope that others are taking care of things. Well, that's a beautiful commitment, and it's a commitment that needs support. We're trying to offer that support on these calls, but here's where we need your partnership. One of the things we're urging you to do is to sign up for the core team. That way, we can connect you with others in your city who've signed up so you're not doing the work alone. Another thing we're asking you to do is to bring others to these calls with you. There are other people you know who are hungry to make a difference, and they'll need support to be successful. They'll need training and partnership and empowerment to get things done and stay in the game. So we encourage you to bring others to these calls so there are 2 or 3 or more of you in the room. Please reach out to friends and family to see if they're interested. We want to hear from people who are on the call tonight or in the future with several people in the room to see if it makes it any more powerful, and to encourage others on the call to do the same where you are. Another thing we're doing is sticking with an action for 2 months or 4 calls. So we started with a training on letters to the editor last month. We really want to encourage you to climb out of the viewing stands and on to the playing field. We really want you to climb over whatever barrier you see and go ahead and write and send your letters to the editor. We don't want to move to the next action, which will be in April, until a large number of us have gotten in gear. Of course, there were 2 or more in the room with you. You could each pair up and promise to send your letter by tomorrow night and call each other to see how it went and offer support. We've already had letters to the editor published in the Sacramento Bee, the Boston Globe, the News Journal in Delaware, and a campus paper at Georgia Southern, and maybe others that we don't even know about. So we'll have a longer segment on the letters to the editor, but please press 1 on your keypad, and Brian will call on you if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question on the things that I've said. And I've talked about encouraging people to invite others to your room, encouraging people to press through any discomfort and to get a letter to the editor sent, and that whole notion that there are a lot more people out there who are actually hungry to make a difference, but they need, like we need, a structure. They need support. They need encouragement, which we're going to hope to do in these calls. So if there's anyone who'd like to make a comment or ask a question, push 1 on your keypad, and when Brian calls on you, give your name and city. So if there's anything I've said, maybe or not said, that you'd like to comment on or ask a question about, please push 1 on your keypad. Now, I know there might be a little shyness at first.
Yep. We got a few people ready to go. So,
great.
Do you want to go to a few questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right, let's go to Caroline Augustine.
Yeah, Caroline,
Yes.
where are you?
I'm in Encinitas, California.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for conducting this meeting. I have been, on my part, calling, writing, commenting anywhere I can with my senators and the one Republican representative that we have. And that has been helpful, I think. But now my question to you is, when you say letters to editors, do you mean for us to write letters to our newspaper and magazine editors?
Yes, I do. Can I ask you a question, Caroline? Have you been on any of these calls, or is this your first one?
This is my first time.
Okay, perfect. So here's the thing. We did an extended training about 2 calls ago. And Joyce, if it's okay, I'm going to ask, when you send the recording for this call tomorrow to everyone, that if you can, record the call the second Tuesday in February, that first of these calls, that had that longer training. And Caroline, you and others could listen to that call to get even more training on letters to the editor. Is there anything else before we go to someone else, Caroline?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. Hopefully you'll be on the lookout for that. And we're going to touch on it tonight, but we're not going to do a long-winded training like we did last month, but you can listen to the recording. Brian, who else? Brian, you might be on mute yourself.
And, of course, I was. Sorry. We have Roger Davis.
Roger, where are you?
I'm in the Los Angeles area, California.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. I've done several, more than several letters to the editor, and there's some things that can be done to make that much easier. The first time, or near the first time I did that, there was some kind of online utility that they directed me to, whatever organization it was, that actually acted as an intermediary and made that much, much easier. Otherwise, each individual location you go to, you have to search for where do I do the letter to the editor. And this one wants it 250 words. That one can handle 350.
Perfect.
And,
so perfect.
There's also a thing called op-ed, which is longer, and I have not done any of those, but maybe a little direction might help that.
Okay, great. So a couple things. I think we're going to direct you both how to do it the old-fashioned way and find out how many words they allow and how to send it. And I think Joyce will also point you to the kind of tool you just mentioned, which is also on American Promise's website. So, we're going to focus on letters to the editor last month and this month. I believe in April and May we're going to focus on getting appointments with your member of Congress, planning the meeting, practicing the meeting, having a great meeting, and great follow-up. And I think we can certainly get to op-eds in the future, too. Let's move on, if you don't mind. We're going to open it up a number of times. Apologies for people who are in line. Let's keep going, and I'm going to open it in a moment. Last call, we heard from Kellen Arno on statewide ballot initiatives. This week, I'll work with you on something that would be useful both for ballot initiatives, but also for city council resolutions or for resolutions in your state legislatures and bills in the Congress. Before I do that, I want to make you aware of a website that is full of information on past and a few very recent initiatives in your state and community. If you can go online, please go to www.united, then the number 4, thepeople.org. So that's www.united, the number 4, thepeople.org. And I'm going to say it one more time, www.unitedforthepeople.org, and that's the number 4. And so if you're near a computer or you're able to go online, go to that website. And when you get to the website, at the top of the page, click on State and Local. And when you click on State and Local, then scroll down to, it's just a little bit down to States in Favor. And you'll see all of the states that you can link on that have taken actions in favor of overturning Citizens United. And if your state is not yet endorsed, you'll have to scroll way down past West Virginia to states not yet supporting, and you can find your state there if it's not in the upper groove. I want to bring Joyce back on and Johannes Epke, another new member of the American Promise staff, to answer any questions you might have. We're just going to take a few with what you see. So if you've been able to go to www.unitedforthepeople.org, and the 4 is the number 4, and you found your state under States in Favor, or you found your state under States Not Yet Supporting, and you have a question, press 1 on your keypad, and Brian will call on you, and then I'll ask if Joyce and Johannes could answer. Johannes, are you on and unmuted? I just want to see if we can hear your voice.
I am indeed. Howdy, Sam.
Okay, there you are. So if you've been able to go online and get to your state, either because they're in favor or they're not yet supporting, and you have a question, it's fine if you don't right now, push 1, Brian will call on you, and then give your name and city. Please go ahead. And Brian, let us know if anyone's, I know some people might not have been able to go online, but go ahead, Brian.
So we have a few people here. They might have had a question on the earlier part, but let me
Okay, we'll see.
So
is there a way they can push 1 if they didn't get called on earlier and they didn't mean to push it this time?
I do not believe so.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. We'll just find out.
Yep. So I'm going to go with, and apologies if this is not the correct pronunciation, Ogi Strogat. You're now unmuted.
Yeah, how do you pronounce your name, and what city and state are you in?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So it's OG. It's like O.G.
Yep.
And I'm in Walnut Creek, California.
Great. And a lot of Californians with questions. Do you have a question on this section, the UnitedForThePeople.org?
Well, I had spoken with Joyce Sanchez
yes.
a short time ago, and of course we're relatively fortunate out here in California with the passage of Prop 59 last November. So
bravo.
My question is, what's next for us? I wasn't clear on that, and that may not be appropriate for this conversation.
Well, let's see. Let's see if Johannes or Joyce has we already passed a ballot initiative, Prop 59 in California in November. What's next for us? Is it a state legislative initiative, or is it working on bills in Congress? Johannes, do you have any feedback on that?
Sure, absolutely. I would say one of the biggest pushes after doing state legislation or a state ballot initiative is to translate that into support in Congress. So getting your U.S. House of Representatives member to be a co-sponsor of one or several of the amendment proposals in Congress would be a great way to do that. If they already are, turning them, as Sam alluded to earlier, from sponsors or co-sponsors into champions. So signing on to a bill is one thing, but then speaking about it publicly and encouraging their colleagues in Congress to also co-sponsor. There are a lot more things that they can do. I would say there are only maybe a handful of elected representatives in the entire country that we have no more to ask of them on this. And in the East Bay, California.
Johannes, this is great. So, OG, this next section after this one is precisely on what Johannes was talking about. So if you'll hold tight, I think you may get a couple of insights into what what's next on that front. Brian, is there someone else?
Yep. Let's go to Carol Schultz.
Carol,
Yes,
where are you?
I am in Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas.
Wow, great.
Yeah. Somebody outside of California, though I am originally.
Exactly. So do you have a question on this particular website we've been discussing?
I wanted to share with you. I've been on to look at it. And, of course, you have to realize that we are a Republican state. We used to be, under Bill Clinton, very, very blue, and now we are very, very red. And I call all the time. I sign petitions. I call. We actually started an action here, and we do legislative days. They went today for environmental, or yesterday for environmental with the legislature. We have 5 cities that have passed resolutions. But my question is, okay, all the resolutions in the world aren't going to help us if we can't get the people to hear us. And
here's the thing. Go ahead.
Watched any of the Tom Cotton town hall, you'll know it's a very uphill battle here.
Okay, very good. So here's the thing. I want to just again, I may even just go ahead because the next section, which is on moving members of Congress or city councilors or state legislators who are opposed up to neutral, and neutral up to supporters, and supporters up to advocates, etc., is part of the answer to your question. Another part of the answer, I think, is, having a group that you're not alone. There's a team of you that are on these calls together and working together. And frankly, another part of the answer, which is coming later in the call, is speaking to the whole community in the form of letters to the editor, and of course someone else mentioned longer versions, which are op-eds. So I think I'm going to ask people to hold tight. We're going to have another opening for people to say something. But since the last 2 questions are related to the next section, I think I'm just going to go on. So now I'd like to discuss this other concept. We saw the states in favor. I want to talk about the fact that we don't just want our state to be in favor of a 28th Amendment. We want them to advocate for it. We want them to lead on it. And eventually we want them to be champions for a 28th Amendment overturning Citizens United. So let me say it another way. It seems to happen to me all the time. I talk with a volunteer advocate from any organization, and they either say, well, my member of Congress is so good on this issue, I don't need to meet with her. Or, my member of Congress is so bad, meeting with him is a waste of time. In this section, I'll briefly outline the champion scale. I'll hear from a few of you after that, and then I'm going to tell the story how a group in Atlanta moved a member of Congress up the champion scale, starting at opposed, and then hear again from some of you on the call. I think we can agree that the farthest you can get from being a champion on overturning Citizens United is being opposed. A member of Congress or local official who is opposed might say, I don't support that, or my constituents wouldn't support that, or what you're talking about isn't even a problem, or I agree that it's a problem, but I can't support your solution. They're opposed in some way. The next level up from opposed is neutral, or maybe uninformed. Someone who's neutral or uninformed might say, I need more information, or this is the first I'm hearing this, or can you explain it to me more fully, or could you give me materials to read so I can make a more informed decision? They're not for and they're not against. The next level from neutral is a supporter. A supporter might say, I'll co-sponsor that, or I think that's a good solution. I can get behind it. The next level up from supporter is advocate. An advocate might say, now that I'm a co-sponsor, now that I'm a supporter, I think it's important to build support for this. I'm going to talk with others in Congress or others in the state legislature about supporting it. I'm going to advocate for it. Do you think you could help me draft an op-ed for our paper so I can educate my constituents? So that might be an advocate. The next level up from advocate is a leader and spokesperson. A leader and spokesperson might be the lead sponsor on the bill in the state legislature or in Congress, or the initiator of a sign-on letter, or maybe the head of a caucus on overturning Citizens United. The final level is champion. I don't like it when groups cheapen the term champion and call anyone who does anything good a champion. A champion is someone who is so passionate that they're out in front of American Promise and pushing American Promise to catch up. It's kind of like if Jeff Clements, the founder of American Promise, was a member of Congress. That's sort of what a champion might look like. They might say, I've arranged for 5 of my Democratic colleagues and 5 of my Republican colleagues to host town hall meetings on overturning Citizens United, and I need your help to find speakers in those 10 cities. Or they might say, I'm gathering signatures on a letter to President Trump asking for a meeting to discuss overturning Citizens United, and I'd like your help in getting congressional signers on the letter and getting letters to the editor published urging the president to meet with us. So let me take a moment before I read this other story about moving from opposed up to advocate. Let me take a moment to hear from people again. Any questions on what I've said about moving elected officials up the champion scale from opposed to eventually champion? Any question about that kind of thing, or I don't know where my member is, or I know where they are, I just don't know what to do about it. Who'd like to go first? Press 1 on your keypad. When Brian calls on you, give your name and city. And so, Brian, you can let me know if there's anyone who's got something they'd like to ask.
A few people, yep. So
Great.
we have Ann Tollefson.
Yes, Ann, where are you?
I'm in Wyoming.
Oh, great. Go ahead.
Was really for that first discussion, so I apologize. But
well, if you want to ask something from the first, go ahead. If it's brief.
Okay, well, it's very brief. I know Senator Al Simpson. I heard from him. But when I go to your website that you referred, we're there. I see that we had one bill that didn't make it out of committee in our recent session of the legislature. I do have the name of the person who sponsored that, so I could contact that person. But I don't have any way of knowing if there's anyone else in my state who is on the core group or who has signed up.
Right.
Is there any way to share that kind of information?
So perfect. The first thing is I urge you, Joyce, tomorrow when you send the email around, also included will be the little form where people can sign up for the core team. Because one of the guest speakers, I think it was in January, was a law professor from Wyoming who'd run for the state legislature and worked on all this. So you really want to connect with him and others in Wyoming. And so if we know that you're on the core team, we, frankly, if you're in different cities, we can still help connect you a little bit. We'll want to know you're on it so we can let you know about others who are on it too. Is that helpful? Okay, hopefully. You have muted yourself. Okay, Brian, someone else?
Let's go to Paula Edens.
Paula,
yes.
And sorry, where are you, Paula?
I'm in Texas.
Oh, great. We're in Texas.
We're way down the list on local support, 2013 Austin. There is a bill up.
Yep.
A rep in Dallas, and I had the same question as Ann or Joyce, but one of my questions is you talk about moving them up the ladder or moving the efforts up the ladder. I noticed Wisconsin has 95 local support and New Hampshire has 69, but they didn't get it to the state.
Right.
That's a lot.
So, for example, if they've got 99 communities, 99 cities who've passed resolutions supporting overturning Citizens United, and they've not gotten it to the state, maybe that's their next job. In other words, in this next year or by the election in 2018, that might be on the plate for them. And then the question, of course, is what for Texas kind of thing.
Well, Texas, we 2013 was the local resolution.
Right. It
was in Austin, which is very blue, and so we have and we're talking about just even getting, to number one, who's opposed to it, which is probably everybody except the Democrats.
Well, here's the deal. You're bringing something up that's my next section, but I'll take one more question, and then my next section gets to what you're talking about, which is, oh my God, our guys are all opposed, I think. What do I do? Isn't it hopeless? Or that, you didn't say that, but that's my next section. Brian, let's take one more before I go on to what Ann just raised.
Yep, so let's go to Deborah Moore.
Deborah, where are you?
In Connecticut, Sharon, Connecticut.
Great, go ahead.
In our state, we have 8 towns that I am on your page that voted it in, and it made it to the state, but then it died in the General Assembly because it was 2012, and when I clicked, it says click here for more information. It said it had been removed from the state page.
Okay. So here's the thing. So that's, the citizen uprising that American Promise is organizing is about helping people figure out what's next for their state. So if their state has already had a ballot initiative and the state legislature's already passed it, then maybe the focus is on creating more advocates and leaders and eventually champions, and the focus is maybe more bills in Congress. If you've had communities that have passed it, but nothing at the state level, maybe working at the state level is what's next. In the future, not too far from now, either the next call or early March, the second and fourth Thursday of the month, we're going to do these calls with a breakout section so that everyone working on a statewide ballot initiative will be in one breakout, and everyone working on a city, state, or congressional resolution would be in another breakout, so we can get down more granularly to kind of what needs to be done. If you don't mind, I'm going to go to the next section, which I think answers some of our questions, including Arkansas and Texas, but others too. So I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story of a friend of mine. His name is Steve Valk, and it's from my book, Reclaiming Our Democracy, Healing the Break Between People and Government. And it so happens that the ebook version is on sale through Sunday for $2.99, the ebook. But this is a story of moving an opponent up the champion scale. Steve was a member of the anti-poverty lobby I founded 37 years ago, Results, and now Steve is communications director for Citizens Climate Lobby. Steve's members, this is an old story, but it's needed today. Steve's member of Congress was one of very few who voted against famine aid for starving Ethiopians in 1985. He said that if watching their congressman was like a sporting event, they would be sitting in the stands with bags over their heads. They were so ashamed to have him for a congressman. But at the suggestion of a Results staff, they began to shift their thinking. There was a prayer that another volunteer had written for his member of Congress in Houston, Texas, someone he'd had similar difficulties with 2 years earlier. They adapted the prayer to their congressman, Pat Swindoll, and it went like this. Thank you, God, for Pat Swindoll. We know he's a good man who wants to do right in the world. We know he struggles with the same problems we do, closing our hearts to those who don't agree with us. There are no thoughts or feelings that he has had that we haven't had, and vice versa. We pray for all of us to have compassion for people in our country and far away, for rich and poor. We pray that Pat and we will be less frightened of each other. We pray our focus will be more to love and appreciate him and less to change him. Help us remember that sharing love with the world is the highest contribution we can make and will lead to children being fed and the planet surviving. forgive our righteousness and anger, open our hearts and minds to find the next expression of love for Pat that he can receive, end of quote. Now, when Steve shared that on a results conference call a few years ago, he said they would say the prayer at each meeting, and at first, at the end of the prayer, they'd say, yeah, right, fat chance. But after a while, it began to sink in, and they started to take it to heart. They started meeting their congressman with a handshake and a smile, and a story about how one intervention or another could save millions of lives. 2 years later, they piled into the congressman's office, showed him a video on microloans for the very poor, and asked him to co-sponsor the legislation. The congressman said yes and asked for their help writing an op-ed for his weekly column to help educate his constituents. Steve ended his section like this, quote, I was now ghostwriting for a man who 2 years earlier had voted against famine aid for starving Ethiopians. We were the only lobby group in Georgia who could get conservative Congressman Pat Swindoll and liberal Congressman John Lewis to co-sponsor the same bill. That experience changed me. I now see that everyone has the potential to do the right thing if given the opportunity. It's refreshing to see people as possibilities rather than obstacles, end of quote. So in a moment, I'm going to see who'd like to make a comment on what I just read or answer any of these questions. How many times have we done the hard work of getting our city council to pass a resolution supporting overturning Citizens United, and then the city council moves to the next item on their agenda? The resolution might have called on Congress to take action, but nobody on the city council arranged a meeting with the congressional delegation to hand them a copy of the resolution and discuss the next steps they could take together. Who's already working with a local or a state or a federal legislator and can tell us how you're working to move them up the champion scale? Or maybe this idea is really new to you. So who's working with a legislator and you want help on what you could do next to move them up the scale? Or who isn't working with a legislator and you don't even know where to begin? So that's a lot of questions. So if you'd like to comment on or address Steve's story, the one I read, or any of these questions, please press 1 on your keypad. Brian will call on you. If you've already moved an elected official from supporter to advocate, or you want help figuring out where your elected official is and what to do next, push 1 on your keypad. Brian will call on you, and then give your name and city. Brian, do we have anyone?
We do. So let's go to Suzanne Leary.
So, Suzanne, where are you?
Hello?
Yeah, hi there. Where are you?
I'm in Belmar, New Jersey.
Well, great. So you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just this week, I attended my first town hall meeting with my congressman, and it was actually a really positive event. And most of the people there, I was very surprised, felt the same way I do. But what I'm wondering is, and listening to you talk, because I'm absolutely willing to do the research, how can I find out, because I happen to know this congressman has been a congressman for a million years, and it's sort of like a political family in New Jersey. And I'm wondering, how can I find out who's funding him? Because I'd like to have a conversation with him, but I'd like to know going in so that I can prepare my discussion around who is supporting him.
Let me ask a few questions. Who is the congressperson? Are they a Democrat or Republican? And what made it a positive? Okay, great. What's their name, and what made it a positive experience?
His name is Donald Norcross, and it was a positive experience because he addressed a lot of the issues that I feel the Progressive Democratic Party supports. He talked a lot about the Affordable Care Act. He talked that he just talked about a lot of the issues that we have been talking about,
right?
And that he supports them.
Yes.
There was really nothing in a 2-hour meeting that I thought, oh no, he doesn't, he's not on board here.
And just curious, did Citizens United come up or overturning?
No, because I didn't get to ask my question because there were so many questions for him. So I didn't get to ask my question.
Brian, I'm going to ask if Johannes could jump in and whether he can tell us kind of where's an easy place to look to find out where members of Congress are getting their funding. And if he can't, don't worry, we'll find that for you and get it basically to you next week. We can probably get it to everyone next week. Johannes, are you there?
Yeah, one resource that I can think of off the top of my head is an organization and a website called MapLight. That's MAPLIGHT. And there are others. If you do a simple search on the internet for tracking money in politics and stuff like that, you can come up with a few resources. There's another great organization that's slipping my mind at the moment. But if you start at MapLight, there are certainly groups doing this work, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And Johannes, would you spell your email address if MapLight doesn't cut it?
Absolutely. It's my first name and last initial, so JOHANNESE @AmericanPromise.net. I'll spell that again.
So that's Johannes E at AmericanPromise.net. Go ahead. You can spell it again.
Thanks, Ed. JOHANNESE
at AmericanPromise.net. Great. Let's take one more, Brian, because we're going to get to the next section, and we got more questions that we'll open it up for. Who would that be, Brian?
I just want to answer that last question. I think Open Secrets, John, is, correct me if I'm wrong, is another good resource. But let's go to
Open Secrets. Okay, Open Secrets would be another place to go. Great. Brian, is there someone else with a comment or question?
There is. 1 second. Let's go with Margie Stein.
And Margie, where are you?
I'm in beautiful Naples, Florida.
Wow.
Wow.
Lucky you.
In some respects.
How much snow are you getting tomorrow morning? Never mind.
0.
Okay. Comment or question?
Sunny, sorry. I've never been on one of your calls before. I am looking at the website. I can see up the road Sarasota past something, but they're way more liberal, greener than we are. We also just had a meeting with our local rep, and he's a multimillionaire. He's a brand new congressman. I suspect he funded himself predominantly. And we did not have such a great meeting. I wish we had one like the last gal talked about hers. Yep. It was pretty bad, actually.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We're going to stick with letters to the editor this month, and next month I'm quite sure we're going to talk about, how do you get a meeting? How do you plan for it? How do you rehearse it? How do you have it in such a way that you can, quite frankly, not put them on the defensive and find something that you can, agree on and then maybe move it to the next level and the next level. And so that's definitely coming.
How many years do we have to do this?
Well, we'll just want to move as briskly as we can. And I urge everyone, when Joyce sends this email around tomorrow, there will be a form where you can put yourself on on the core team, so that we can let you know about other people in your area who are like-minded. And there's this amazing woman, Ray Claire, who was also a guest speaker. I'm not sure if Ray Claire is in St. Pete or Clearwater, or Tampa, But the point is, she's really working to organize the whole state. So there are people you're going to want to connect with, but we need to know you're out there. Okay? So here's the deal. I'm going to go to the last section so we don't completely run out of time. Here's the question. My last section is to take us back to the letters to the editor training we've been doing. I don't know if Sharon, who'd had her piece published in the paper in Delaware, or if Deborah, who had her piece published in the Boston Globe. I don't know if you're on the call and if you'd be willing to talk to us for a moment about what you did to get it published in your local paper, or if there's someone else on the call who has had a letter published in the last 2 weeks and we don't even know about it. Any of you folks, if you would push 1 on your keypad, we'd like to hear from you. Also, if there's someone's been on these calls but you feel a little stuck and need some help in getting going on getting your letter, push 1 on your keypad, and when Brian calls on you, give your name and city. Now, I don't know if we're going to hear from anyone. Brian, is there anyone who's pushed 1?
My screen says Larry Scarf, but I believe Debbie Scarf might.
Okay, Debbie, are you there? We're not hearing Deborah. Or Larry? Is that Larry there? Deborah?
Yes, we're here. We're both here.
You're great. And where are you in Massachusetts?
We're in Burlington.
Okay, and I'm going to interview you, and you and I have never talked, but had you ever had a letter to the editor published before?
No.
So that was your first one, and you only got it in the Boston Globe, right?
Right.
Okay, bravo. Okay, great. Probably with a circulation of 250,000 kind of thing. Can you tell me what you thought about when you first heard the letters to the editor training? Did you think, oh, this is going to be a breeze, or I'm a great writer, or I'm really nervous about this, I'm afraid? What were you thinking when you were on the call before you ever then wrote a letter? Maybe you don't remember, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I was thinking more on the end that it might be a little difficult to get it accepted into the paper.
Yes, okay. But you were going to go for it, but this might be hard to get it published.
Right. Correct.
Okay, and what did you do? Did you write the letter after the call that night, or you wrote a little of it and then you finished it another day, or you just did it another day? How did you do that?
I actually looked in the newspaper to find an article that you could,
right.
And I put my thoughts together in a letter and sent it.
Okay, great. And then did they call you or write you saying we're going to publish it, or how did you find out it was going to be in the paper?
No, they didn't contact me, although they said they were going to, but I actually read the paper that morning and didn't even see it, and Jeff sent me an email saying, way to go, and I thought, well, he must know something I don't, and he put
Okay, and then when you actually saw it in the paper, what did you think or feel or whatever?
It was kind of cool. It was very cool to get published.
Okay, great. So here's the thing. I really recommend you and anyone else who has, for example, a letter to the editor published, that you send a copy, the link, to your member of Congress, or send the link to your state legislators or to your U.S. senators kind of thing, and that you also post it on social media and, kind of make a big deal of it and not, have it published, isn't that great, I'm done, but, make sure people who should see it, and that kind of thing. So thank you, and congratulations, Deborah. One more. I'm just curious if there's anyone on the call who had a letter published in the last 2 weeks and we don't know about it. If you've had a letter published, would you push 1 and Brian will call on you. Maybe that's no one, but I just want to see. Brian, do we have any? Others?
We have somebody, I don't know if it was an answer to that question, but he has had his hand up. Do you want to check in
Great.
with him?
Who is it?
His name is Bob Stephen.
Bob, what city are you in? Bob, go ahead and speak up.
Sorry, I got the mute.
Bob, are you there now?
The mute is not working.
Oh. Bob, might Bob be muted or you have him muted? Okay, we're not hearing Bob. So here's the deal. We're actually running low on time. I want to make 2 points. If you're new to the call and you want to take a shot at writing a letter to the editor, I'm going to go over 2 key points, but you can listen to the longer training from last month that Joyce is going to send around. And the 2 points I'm going to make are these. In order to find out what your newspaper requires, maybe they let you have 200 words or they let you have 150 words or they want you to send the letter using this email address or just put it into the website, that kind of stuff, you can Google the name of your paper and the phrase letters to the editor submission criteria, and you'll find out what your paper wants. So, for example, if I lived in Miami, Florida, I would Google Miami Herald, letters to the editor submission criteria, and what should come up is what the Miami Herald asks for. How many words? How do I send it? Do they want my address and phone number at the end of the letter? That kind of thing. And so that's just something I'm going to urge you to look up. I looked up the Boston Globe, and they said letters should be written exclusively to the Globe, not to any other paper. Include your name, address, and daytime phone number. They should be 200 words or fewer. All are subject to editing. And here's the email and fax, and it was letters@globe.com. So, I live in Princeton, New Jersey, so I would Google Princeton Packet letters to the editor submission criteria, and that's what you would do. Take your local paper, maybe a little one, a small, really small paper, or maybe a larger local paper, and Google the name of the paper and letters to the editor submission criteria. The last bit, and I'm going to do this quickly, is then you want to look for an article that would be a good example or a good angle for your letters. So I looked in the paper today, and this is an Associated Press article, so it could be in lots of newspapers. The headline that I found, it was in the Chicago Tribune, it was also in the Washington Post, is EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, carbon dioxide not primary cause of global warming. That was the headline. And so I knew that I could do some kind of letter to the editor with it. I'm going to read a little bit of the article, 2 paragraphs, and a little of my letter. The new chief of the Environmental Protection Agency said on Thursday that he does not believe that carbon dioxide is a primary contributor to global warming, a statement at odds with mainstream scientific consensus and his own agency. And it keeps going, and I could read more, but I'm not going to. So I started a letter to the editor that goes something like this. Dear editor, or to the editor, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt's denial of carbon dioxide being a primary cause of climate change is at odds with 97% of climate scientists and is driven by oceans of campaign spending by the fossil fuel industry. If we want to deal with climate change and a host of other issues begging to be addressed, we will have to deal with the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision, which gave human constitutional rights to corporations and struck down laws limiting campaign finance contributions. So that's an example of me looking for an article that would be a great angle for a letter to the editor, and then there's an example of the letter to the editor that I suggested. So tomorrow, Joyce is going to send around a recording of this call and a recording of the early February call where we did a serious letters to the editor training if you feel you need that. She's also going to give you a little form where you could signify that you would like to be a member of an American Promise core team, and that that way we can help connect you with others in your community who are also signing up, so you won't have to work alone. Joyce, I think I'm going to turn it back over to you so we can end on time. This has been great. You guys are amazing, and this has been a thrill. I hope you'll make a commitment to joining all of these calls and learning and working together. Thanks so much. It was really a joy to work with you. Joyce?
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. So just want to say, first off, thank you, everyone, for the great questions that you asked tonight. And definitely a special thanks to Sam for your great training on building champions among elected officials and getting letters to the editor published. So before we hop off the phone for the night, let's just review the next steps about how to get involved with the Uprising. Number one, you'll help organize a public event in your community to spark the Uprising. Number two, you'll start a new core team or American Promise Association in your community by filling out and returning the short form I'll be sending each of you by email tomorrow. On the form, you can let us know how you want to get involved. Number three, you'll use the great training from Sam and the Citizen Action Center on our website to get your letter to the editor sent. If your letter gets published, do a victory dance and let Ben or I know. I'll be, as Sam said, I'll be sending an email tomorrow that will outline these steps in more detail with helpful links to help you get into action. Also, there will be an RSVP link for the next call scheduled for Thursday, March 23rd at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and a recording of tonight's call. So if there's any final questions or comments before we wrap up, please press 1 now so Brian can call on you. Okay, great. So I don't think we see any hands. I'll go ahead and wrap it up with a short quote taken from Senator Nina Turner at the American Promise National Citizen Leadership Conference. The quote says, "I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I see promise in this problem. The promise in this problem is that it has brought countless people together from all walks of life, moving in a singular direction to try to bring about a change in this country that will yield results greater than we ever imagined. There is promise in this problem, and together we will win." I'll repeat that. The quote says, "I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I see promise in this problem. The promise in this problem is that it has brought countless people together from all walks of life, moving in a singular direction to try to bring about a change in this country that will yield results greater than we ever imagined. There is promise in this problem, and together we will win." So with that said, I just want to say that you all make me hopeful. Thank you so much for joining the call tonight. I'm going to ask Brian to mute everyone so everyone can say goodnight to each other. So I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Have fun.
Good night.
Hey, Debbie.